It's a wonderful story about our mayor. Last Thursday, a racial bias complaint was filed against 8 local high schools. And you can actually, it's interesting, Chris Hayes, in his book, The End of Meritocracy, The Twilight of the Elites, he talks about his experience as going, I think it was to Stuyvesant. And Stuyvesant High School is a public school in New York City, but you have to test into it. And I don't know what the numbers are. Like 1 out of thousands, 10,000 get in. What is it?
I don't know the numbers either, but it's ridiculously hard, and I remember.
It's incredibly hard to get in.
It wasn't that long ago when I had friends who tried to get into that school.
It's extremely hard. You have to be very, very intelligent. And back when he went, he wrote about this, I believe, or he talked about it, or he's written about it. I think you can find an excerpt online, actually, where he talks about this. When he went, the school was much more diverse than it is today. You'd take the standardized test, and if you did well enough on it, you'd get in. It was impossible for anybody to get in unless they did well on this test. And he says today, however, the school is a lot less diverse. And the reason is because of test prep. Wealthy people can afford private tutors to test you, to tutor you for this test. Upper middle class people can get you into a non-private tutoring session where you can go to a class to learn how to take the test. This is rampant in New York. Very poor kids, they can't afford to do this. Kids whose parents are just not tuned in, they may not be aware of it. And so it is creating a sort of these tests are biased against these kids.
These are very specific tutors, too, for this test. If I remember correctly, they have previous versions of this test. So you're already going in with a huge head start than people who didn't have these tutors.
Absolutely. Mila took the gifted talented test. And we had a tutor come in when she was young to basically, there's only so much you can teach, but you can teach them to feel comfortable with taking a test, a standardized test, which are rather easy to get confused on. And I'm convinced, she did well in it. I'm convinced if she hadn't had that tutor, she would have been able to get into the gifted talented program. We didn't put it because she just made it by the skin of her teeth. But I'm convinced that had she not had that tutoring, she would not have been eligible for that program. We were already into a very good public school, so we were happy with that. This makes a huge difference. There's no doubt about it. And so how does Bloomberg react? The NAACP Legal Defense Fund filed the complaint against the city, saying the admissions test used for 8 specialized high schools in the area is biased against Black and Latino students, citing U.S. education statistics showing that among the 967 students offered a spot at Stuyvesant High School, only 19 were Black and 32 were Latino. According to the New York Times, 70% of public school students in the city are Black or Latino. NAACP attorney Damon Hewitt told the newspaper, "I refuse to believe there are only 19 brilliant African Americans in the city. It simply cannot be the case. It's a shameful practice and it must be changed." Bloomberg defended the admissions process, saying it was not subjective and designed for the best and brightest. "I don't care what some people say," Bloomberg told WNBC TV. "Life isn't always fair. I don't know how you would take away the right to get tutoring or how the public could pay for tutoring. Life's not fair. Rich people are going to get the better public education. People who can afford to pay for tutoring are going to get the better public education. Life is not fair. This isn't enhancing someone's education. This is getting them admitted to a school which is going to fundamentally change the rest of their life on day one. Not because necessarily the school is that much better, but because they are now have that imprimatur which will get them into any college they want to get into. Period. End of story. That's it. Life's not fair. Well, how about this? How about getting rid of the school? Life's not fair. How about getting rid of the school?
Isn't this
What's the argument? Wait, here's the argument, the counter argument to that. Why would you punish these the very smart kids? Life's not fair. But this is based upon their own merit. But is it? Is it? I mean, life's not fair for these kids because they can't afford the tutoring. But if it's not fair for other people, well, that's a different story.
Isn't this coming from the same guy who just last year said something like, it's not fair that Occupy Wall Street is making getting to work more difficult for these people working on Wall Street?
Good point.